Building a family doesn't look the same for everyone. Different roads for different parents, and we all get there uniquely. I didn't know about the various types of assisted reproductive options that exist for those of us struggling to build a family. I'm grateful for the community that bonds us together on suffering loss, managing IVF, and maneuvering through donor and carrier journeys. All the roadblocks that we've had to deal with trying to realize our families instantly bonds us. The mental health side of this very personal, emotional sector is not to be diminished. All parties involved need to be supported and heard. We are known to be the worst club with the best members, and I'm blessed to have found my tribe. You're listening to Mothers in Arms. I'm your host, Leslie Lopez. This is episode number 15. In conversation with doctor in clinical psychology, licensed marriage and family therapist, and the founder of Embra Health, Dr. Sadaf Sahibzada. Dr. Sadaf is passionate about the meaningful role that mental health plays in family building and committed to making sure it's treated as a vital part of the process. Embra Health offers comprehensive evaluations, consultations, and journey support for all parties involved in third-party reproduction. Hearing her talk about the magic of working with first responders and helping others when their hearts need protection, I literally started crying. I actually stopped myself from letting the tears interrupt the interview at one point. And you know what? I won't next time. It's good to be in the moment and grieve, because it really does make the point that this journey in seeking your family, it's an emotional roller coaster. Without further ado, let's get into it. It was such a pleasure to meet you this spring at the SEEDS conference in Las Vegas. Getting to hear you speak on the panels about the importance of mental health being incorporated into the workspace when dealing with assisted reproductive life, not only for gestational carriers, but also for intended parents.
Yes, I'm Dr. Sadaf. I have Embra Health, which is a company, it's a mental health care company tailored to third-party reproduction and just fertility overall. When I created Embra Health, I was kind of looking at everything from an outsider's perspective as a mental health provider in this space, thinking, gosh, there's like a lot more that we can be offering, not just to intended parents, carriers, donors, but also to the people, the professionals behind the scenes. So the models of service that Embra Health is pushing forward is not only taking care of carriers and donors and adding on support services for them, but also making sure that if you're an agency or you're a clinic, that you're hiring the right people to work in this space. This is a very emotion forward space. You are working with individuals who are in the most sensitive, emotional, extreme stage of life, which is family building. And they are already sort of coming at this stage with a lot, whatever it is, excitement,
Right.
joy, trauma, fear, all of that. And so if you are not, if your team doesn't necessarily have the skill sets to work in that emotional space, that's going to make an environment for everyone that's just going to be kind of challenging and uncomfortable.
And you also have a very cool approach to it, which I had never heard before, about initially training employees with this mindset of mental health being at the forefront. Can you explain a little bit about your ideas here?
Yeah. So what you heard me speak about at Seeds was, hey, let's also screen our employees or colleagues or people that you want on your team to ensure that they have the emotional capability to be good at this type of work. And a lot of people are wonderful and empathetic and have huge hearts, but may not have tools or skills to manage high emotions on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of the idea that we are pushing forward of like, hey, let's make sure your team is the right person. Like, let's make sure who's in your team is right for this role. Ultimately, that'll affect your business on a like a business perspective scale, but also it'll affect how how much you can help others.
That's right. That's right. So, is the idea to initially get this page going and continue to check in with the employees throughout the year or throughout their time with you? Like, how often would you be checking in with, let's say, a case counselor?
Yeah. So this the what we're talking about is psychosocial screening, which is just checking in to assess someone's baseline level of emotional awareness, emotional sensitivity. This is highly encouraged to do at the forefront, right? So if I'm hiring someone, I really want to know what their baseline is in terms of, can they be an effective emotional first responder? That's kind of their job if they're a case manager or a journey coordinator.
Right.
So I'd want to know that at the very beginning. But there is a great benefit to kind of throwing these types of tools or testings in the mix when you have an established team, because everything is still happening outside of work for everyone. You know, life is still lifing, and we are our different versions of ourselves at work. We may be very different outside of work. And so you really want to understand who your employees are at work. And sometimes, if you have a team that's been there for a while, everyone's kind of in their routines and patterns, you don't really get a sense as to how everyone actually is doing or what the culture of your company actually is feeling like. So,
Right.
using psychosocial screening at like company retreats or at your quarterly meetings or just at the times where you're kind of trying to get the team back together is a wonderful way to like test everyone's temperature and kind of check in again about, okay, well, her strengths, her emotional strengths are this. Why is she doing this job? I think she would be so much more effective in this role. And she's been here a while. Let's get her over there. So you can utilize this information to maximize how your team is performing, and also just check the temperature of your culture.
I like how you put it as first responders.
Yes.
It's so true. It's like this, just the nature of assisted reproductive life. It's just so like it's now. It's,
It's
I'm
like,
feeling this way.
where's
Yeah,
yeah. So where's the scene? What do we need to do? We don't really know what to do yet, but we're here. And emotional, that's the best way I can describe it, an emotional first responder. The challenge with a case coordinator or a journey coordinator or anyone working in an agency is you don't have like a toolkit or like a big truck with a bunch of great stuff ready for you to use. You're an emotional first responder with just your big old heart. And for many circumstances, that's going to be very effective. And that puts a lot of pressure on that person as well to just give and give and give. So,
right.
utilizing and having supports for internal teams is a big area of focus that we see is needed.
What inspired you to start this business?
Um, all of that. I mean, I've been a I've been
Not
a
enough. That's a lot. Yes.
I've been a clinical provider, so I've been doing evaluations for donors and carriers as an individual for about 6 years. And I've had my own experience and story with just family building, and I've been drawn to third party reproduction for a very long time. I have a sister who is likely going to go down this path of third party reproduction. So it's just sort of been in my environment. And then when, as an individual provider, I looked at the agencies that I was working with and the kind of things they would start to ask me for. And I'm like, why doesn't this already exist? Why are you asking me for support for your donors? I thought you'd have a system in place or a company that's doing that kind of stuff. And then when I looked into it further, there wasn't. There are not a lot of mental health care companies focused on family building.
There's
Um,
not.
and family building is very specific. There are nuances to working with an intended parent who's had 7 miscarriages and is now at surrogacy. There are nuances to talking to an egg donor and what they actually need to consider outside of just, donating for good reasons. How does this affect your life? How does this affect your family's life? There are so many nuances to this space that I think in a regular therapy setting you're not getting. So because I kind of had my foot in already doing these evaluations, I thought, okay, let's just try to create some more support services that actually are not existing in this world of family building. And we did that with the donors and carriers side. We are still developing services on that end, as well as intended parents. But then very quickly and very obviously, it was clear that the clinics and the agencies also need support, also need to talk to someone, also need tools, also need to learn how to manage these high emotional, like high stress cases. And it's not just like having a bad day. It's like being next to someone when they're having a late term loss or a termination, and dealing with that trauma.
Makes
So
sense.
it's big stuff and nobody's helping them.
Right. Like if you're a case counselor and you're dealing with someone that, has like loss after loss after loss, and you're giving and you're giving, you're trying to do your job, make that person, hold that person's hand, be there for them. But then what do you do with all of that extra motion that makes total sense? Like, I actually wish that my case counselor had you in her life when I was going through my intended parent journey, and that I had you in my life at that point. I was seeing a mental health expert during that time, but she was not familiar with
Um,
assisted reproductive life and all of this. So she did her best to help me, but there was like a lack of.
it's just it's a different uh it's a different world, right? Like, if I hadn't been in this world, I wouldn't understand you as an intended parent sharing a concern about the relationship you have with your surrogate. Because I have no idea if I'm just a therapist, like I've never seen that up close. I don't know what the difference is in that relationship versus someone who's kind of familiar, in this example of like an IPGC relationship. There are nuances in this relationship. This is a tricky kind of relationship. This is not like any other relationship in your life. There are no rules, there are no boundaries. It makes it very awkward to navigate. It can get challenging. You can run into conflict. So yes, I think there's a difference to having a clinical provider who's at least familiar, if not involved in this world of family building, to be the person you talk to, or at least the person that can help guide you in a direction that would make sense.
Right. Have you ever considered this line of work going into other types of businesses? Like I used to work in the restaurant industry, and I wish I had this infrastructure back then, as a restaurant manager, right? Who you deal with all these customers and employees. And at the time, I was not a parent. But I felt like a parent. I wish I would have had this kind of groundwork or a handbook that I could flip through to help some of my disgruntled guests and disgruntled employees.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, other workplace environments will have like an EAP system, right? Employee assistance, where you may have access to talk to someone and have some services. I think the focus of just emotional awareness and emotional regulation and how to help other people or talk to other people when they're frustrated or angry. I think that's a fundamental school that should be taught in school. Like that's a school of thought that we should all have as a baseline, but unfortunately we don't. It would be very cool to have a manual or a book, but I don't know. I think ultimately it'll come down to just, it also comes down to who you are and your own experiences and how you deal with things at the end of the day. When you're someone who wants to work in third party reproduction, um, or in this area of family building, there's like a baseline of a big heart. Like you don't really do this for the money oftentimes. Like, yes, this is a form of employment. I wouldn't say it's like big bucks to be in this field. You do this for the heart. You do this for the love of what you're doing. You do this for the magic of helping others build families. I think that's louder. So your heart is sort of more present in this role, but your heart needs protection too and needs help and support too. And so, yeah, if there are ways that we can just equip or help those in this field take care of themselves, have a space to process, have scripts or structure that helps them navigate tense or difficult conversations or situations, that's kind of what we're hoping to do.
In my Latino culture, mental health is seen as a bit of a taboo, like something isn't right with you. And so, therefore, I've heard this, you're going to go pay someone to tell you what's wrong with you. And you should be smart enough to already know that is a general sort of consensus in, I want to say, sort of older generation, like things that my parents would say, or, my older cousins, my older siblings sort of frame of thought, that mental health is an extra added on element that you don't necessarily need. And so for me to embrace it and to really depended on it, not just in my daily life, but certainly when I was waiting for my daughter via surrogacy, it was everything to me. Do you ever get pushback from some clients, intended parents, or gestational carriers who are just like, that's not for me, I don't need that?
Yeah, always. There's always that stigma with therapy. It's gotten less, but I think when you come from a collectivistic culture or just a different culture that looks down upon this idea of sharing information, right? The family's information, your information needs to be private. You don't need to include other people in that. Um, if you go back to where that mentality must have formed, it's sort of a survival mechanism, right? It's protection. It's you don't trust other people and you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your family.
Uh,
And I think our society is very different. And especially if you live in the US and you're from a different country, this is a different cultural experience. Um, I'm proud of how far therapy has come because I think a lot more people, more than ever before, are utilizing this type of support in their lives. So that's wonderful. However, I think therapy, I just think some folks are stuck on this like picture of therapy that is so not it right now, of this older person who must have all this wisdom, and you know you are paying them, and they're sharing this wisdom to you, and it may or may not help, and you're also talking about deep dark secrets of the family or whatever they are, and that could hurt the family or hurt you and expose you. And it's just not that anymore. It's normal people, like who you'd have as a friend, who you'd have as a family friend, an extended
right.
cousin. Like it's your normal people. It's people that you know in
Yes.
your life that are training in a very specific way to really understand feelings, thoughts, emotion, childhood experiences, and just how it shapes someone. And I think for the most part, who most therapists are also just naturally very intuitive people. They have experiences in their life where they were just kind of the one that people talk to anyway. At least that's true for me. I'm the eldest daughter and the first grandchild. I was like the first kid. And I was kind of brought up in this way of like, I got to take care of all you guys now. I had siblings, I had cousins, I was their caretaker. My parents had me young, so I was kind of like their caretaker too sometimes.
Wow.
And you just kind of, I think some of the time your life experiences put you in that position to learn about different people at a very young age, to learn how to interact with different people. You kind of get intuitive in that space of how to read someone, and then you become a clinician. In family building, I think this is a tricky one too, because it's just hard. Like if you're an intended parent who is trying to build your family and you have to go through surrogacy, for example, like this is already hurting you. And then the thought of someone saying, hey, you should speak to a therapist and talk about it. It's like, I think there's two sides to it. One is, I don't even want to open this box. I just want to keep pushing forward, because if I open this, it'll break me. And I need to have my child. I need to get to the end. I need my family.
Wow.
Right. And so it's like, I don't even want to do that, because I'm so scared of what could come from that. The other side of this too is like, why would I need that? Why, if I'm trying to become a parent and this is my path, why do I need to speak to someone? Why don't other parents don't have to speak to people? They want to have a kid. Why do I have to?
Yeah.
And so I think those are the two camps that we see, especially on the intended parent side. And what I would say is, I think with something so specific like going through surrogacy or building your family through third party reproduction, your family, your friends, they're going to be there for you, hopefully, and they're going to support you and they're going to love you through it. But they know too much about you to be an ally in a sense of to be a non biased ally. And I think a therapist going through family building can be your non biased ally. It can
Yes.
be that person who is there for your worst day, but also doesn't have a vested interest in your future. Like wants to just be there for you at any point that you need them, wants to hear you out, wants to share perspective for you, but won't intrude. And unfortunately with family and friends, they love you so much, they will intrude. They will share their they will tell you what to do. They will, they'll do all that. But a therapist won't. A therapist will listen, will honor your space, won't intrude. And I feel like that's the best way I've described it. Or like, oh, that feels nice. Like I'd love to talk to someone to just like process what I'm actually feeling, even if it's deep and dark. And they won't intrude. They won't tell me that I did something wrong. They won't tell me that I need to do this. They won't judge me for it. They're just hearing it.
That's right.
And I
Without the comment gallery, like coloring your decisions and your emotions.
None of that. No. And if anything, I think a therapist is like a wonderful mirror at times because they could show you, like, hey, if you go down this path, here's what I could show you in terms of like what it might look like. If you are considering this decision, here's a mirror. Look at how it could look like. And so that I think is a benefit to therapy too, where our family and friends don't necessarily let us do that cognitive exploration when we're stuck. They want to help guide us.
Right.
And a therapist won't want to guide you. I mean, we'll offer guidance, but a therapist will say, hey, let me help you make the decision.
I love that. Yes, it's like when you're talking about your emotions, you're not necessarily asking for answers or, decisions. It's just about sitting in the feeling then and there, like, this is how I'm feeling right now. And I just want to talk about this and just
Yeah.
listen to me.
Just stop talking and listen. Did I say something that kind of hit a nerve?
Yeah, it was when I was going through my journey, my agency didn't offer a mental health expert, right? She came from my insurance. So when I did talk to the mental health expert that came with the agency that was mainly there for my surrogate, I noticed that when I talked to her, I would watch my words. Because as an independent parent, I didn't want to come off as being not strong enough, or not. She's not in the right place, and then she would go report back to the surrogate saying, "Oh, and not that she ever would, but just that she would know that I was, weak or scared or alone, right?" And I felt like I really needed to come off as being strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think your experience is extremely normal and valid. And that happens on both sides. Like for a carrier as well, when we're like, hey, we offer mental health check ins, check in with us. Oftentimes it'll be I'm good, I got this, because it's almost this idea of like, I don't want them to think that I'm struggling in this pregnancy. I don't want to share that like emotionally this is a lot harder than I thought. Like what will happen? Like, all the what ifs. And so oftentimes it's the same way on the carrier side of like, I need to be like, I'm the one who's doing this. I'm in charge. I have to make everyone proud. And so they'll have the same experience too, where it's like, well, I don't want to talk about it then. I'll just keep it to myself.
Right.
That's unfortunate.
It is. Once the journey is going on, what do you recommend is the best way to keep mental health in your life after, God willing, the baby was delivered healthfully, everything went well, everyone goes their separate ways, the contract is over, but everyone still has this like next chapter of emotions and experiences going on. Do you stay on with a surrogate for a couple months after, or?
So we partner primarily with agencies and clinics, and they'll have their own kind of design around this. But we strongly encourage certain milestone touch points. And the one that we encourage a lot with our newer partnerships is a joint consultation 4 to 6 weeks after birth. So the ideal situation would be everyone gets back together 4 to 6 weeks after birth. And it's kind of like a closure session. We want the intended parent to share their version of what happened. We want the carrier to share their version of what happened, how it felt, what are the expectations moving forward, just showing gratitude to one another and just having a space for them, um, with a mental health provider who can like navigate that type of closure and navigate some of the grief that comes from it. That seems to be a very vital touch point that doesn't necessarily happen, that we really want to
Yes.
see happen more.
Yeah. So nice.
And then beyond that, I think some agencies will offer continued care for a gestational carrier primarily. So, like checking in with her the first 3 months postpartum, and then extending that to 6 months. I think there's like no wrong answer. I think the ideal situation would be a 4 to 6 weeks post birth joint meeting with everyone, and then maybe every third month at the 6 months checking in, whether it's individually or together, depending on how your relationship dynamic evolves. Because for the carrier, you're thinking, okay, she's going through postpartum and there's no baby, and then how's she going to deal with that? Like that, if she's a first time carrier, like, we want to make sure she has support through that very different experience of postpartum. But I think the intended parent gets left out as well, because for many intended parents, at least, through my experiences, it's like you get to the finish line, right? Like you finally have this baby that you've been dreaming of, and they're perfect and you love them. But the adrenaline, the pain, the fear, everything that you've held for all of this time is still there with you. And it kind of just crashes for many intended parents. And though you're there with
100%.
this beautiful baby and you've gotten everything that you fought for, you're not happy. Like you feel the pain of it all. You feel all the weight of it all. And that's a very tricky postpartum as well. Yes, you didn't carry the child, but you're very much in a postpartum stage. And I think that gets forgotten for the intended parents.
Like, I'm going like this right now. I'm shaking my head. Yes, 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 because it was completely felt this sort of depression
Yeah.
that I tried to talk about. And everyone's like, well, you didn't carry her. So it's not hormonal. You're not postpartum. And okay, right. So, let me paste my
Right.
smile back on, because yes, I have everything I've been wanting for, I've been fighting for, in my
Years.
case, 6 years.
Yeah.
And it's just like, your life is suddenly like completely different. You no longer can just go take a shower without
Yep.
organizing, and then you feel guilty for being sad. Like
Yep.
it was a huge sort of, and then I couldn't even talk about it honestly with my therapist. I couldn't. I was embarrassed. I thought that because I would tell her that that I was sad, that I wasn't, something was off, that I literally thought she would call child services and like my baby would get pulled away from me.
Oh, I think that's a fear that is hard to admit, but probably very, very common. That's the thing. I think postpartum is not just the physical aspect of postpartum. Postpartum is a physical experience as well. If you're someone who's carried, you're going to have the hormonal crash, you're going to go through all of the healing. But postpartum isn't just defined by the physicality of it. Postpartum is that very abrupt life change of like, I can't go to the bathroom and take a shower whenever I want to, right? Or it's like I can't function in my day the way I am used to, or I can't make plans for myself the way I could before. And we can't just go out. Like we have to find a sitter, or it's just a whole different life change that comes with parenting that is not necessarily related to the birthing aspect.
Right.
And the intended parent side, I think that's the always like the biggest shock, because you expect, oh, maybe like I'm going to have my child and I would be so happy. And this is exactly what I've been wanting. And then you get there and you have your child and you're in the very early stages of a newborn. And those are not fun stages, no matter how much you love your
No.
baby. Those are not fun days. They're hard and they're tough days for anybody. And at that point, it doesn't necessarily matter if you carried or not. For an intended parent, you have the slight benefit of not going through physical healing. at the same time, which is a challenge on its own. However, you are still very much in postpartum when you come home with your baby.
What do you think is the most challenging part of having this business? And I mean, is there something specific that you'd like to see change?
I mean, the more we're only about a year and a half old, so we're still in a very small startup phase, and it's been a quick evolution. But I have really big dreams. The more I'm looking into the nooks and crannies of
Yes.
everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, this doesn't exist and this doesn't exist. We should be doing those things. I think my hope is that mental health care is prioritized in family building. And I've seen the trend. I've seen even in the last year and a half of having a company, having agencies say, well, I want to do more of this. Like I want to add more support sessions. And it's perfect. Like it's looking that way. I think what I also hope agencies and clinics realize is like even on a business level, like mental health care services throwing in these touch points into the process only increase like the success outcomes. If you are taking care of your intended parents, if you're taking care of your carriers, if they're having a positive experience going through this really intense journey with all of this support from your agency or clinic, they will think so kindly of you. They will talk to all of their friends about you. Your carriers will come back to do more journeys with you. They want to feel cared for. And I feel like that's missing in the
Yes,
logistics of this. Surrogacy is crazy expensive, very logistical, very technical, very contractual, and it's missing the human pieces to me. And I think you can add those cushions through those mental health touch points, and it helps everyone. It helps your business and it helps your intended parents, your carriers, your donors to have a positive experience. So I
for
guess that's
sure.
my answer is I think there are so many ways to create more mental health touch points. And again, looking at all parts of the pie, right? Like not only the carriers, donors, intended parents, but also the agencies. I want to equip them with services and support so that they're doing a better job as well and taking care of their people as well. There's a very high turnover rate with employees in third party reproduction. There is high turnover with who stays and who leaves and how long they are at your company. So there are all these factors that I think a really solid approach to providing mental health support would solve.
Yes, it was so encouraging to see the attendees at the Seats conference all sort of being on in agreement that mental health being incorporated into their businesses was something that they needed.
Yep.
Just like the buzz about it, and it just made me so happy. And it was like, yes, that's like you get a doctor for this, doctor for that. Like, why not a doctor for like your mind? It's so true.
Well, and to your point, like there's a lot of parts of this journey that are just going to be emotionally challenging. And like you as an intended parent, like how comfortable would you have felt to go to your agency and say, I'm not strong. I'm feeling super like this is hurting me. Like this is really hard for me. Like you don't want to, they're the ones cashing your check. You don't want them to think that you're not a suitable fit for this, right? Like that,
Right.
there's a barrier there. Or for a gestational carrier, like you're getting offered this crazy compensation package. You're not going to go to your agency and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't know if I want to do this anymore." You're not going to tell them that. So there's almost a need to have this other person, this other space to capture some of those emotional challenges, thoughts, perspectives. And it's someone who is trained to help navigate those emotional terrains. Like it just makes perfect sense to me. I don't
It
know.
does. It
Um,
does.
and it really, I think on a business level, like on clinics and agencies, they think, oh, well, this is an added cost that we don't want to include in our packages. Like it's already so expensive. We wouldn't want an attended parent or a carrier to pay another 2000 whatever to have these support sessions. I think what's missed though, and maybe you could speak to this, is on the intended parent side, at least what we've noticed is when you're kind of shopping around to agencies and clinics, You're looking at pricing, of course. You're looking at what do you offer, of course. But if you have an idea from an agency or clinic that they actually care about you through this process, that they're making it mandatory for you to meet with someone in the beginning to discuss preparing for the journey, to meet with someone at every trimester to make sure you're feeling good still, to make sure to meet with someone after birth, to make sure you're supported after birth. If that's part of their package, that
Right.
is so appealing,
It is. For
right?
sure. It makes them stand out and makes them more like, oh, that's the one for me. I care about things like that more than the other
Because
add-ons.
it's about the entire experience for me. You're not necessarily just selling me, here's a good service, here's another. You're thinking about, hey, this will be a challenging road, and we've created these opportunities for you to be supported. And so I think agencies that get that understand that that's also very helpful for your agency to be that kind of agency that is already embedding this in there. We've had a clinic that we've had an agency that we've partnered with for a year, and they didn't necessarily do any of the mental health touch points. They didn't prioritize journey support. And when we partnered with them, we said, hey, can you please try this model? Make sure every single intended parent speaks to us at the beginning. Make sure every match that occurs has a meeting with us right after, kind of like the second date, so that we can get deeper into their connection. And can you make sure that every trimester we talk to all of them, carrier and intended parent? And we want to talk to them 4 to 6 weeks after birth as well. So that's just they're part of that's part of their deal. You have to make it seem like that's happening no matter what. They pushed that model forward. They added a charge to the package. I think it was like $2,000 to have this model. They made it optional. Every single intended parent opted in for that one. And we were worried that like maybe they wouldn't pay for that. Like maybe it'll be let's just put it as an optional if you don't want to. We've had, I don't think a single intended parent has said, no, we don't want that. So they do. They want that. Intended
That's
parents
right.
and carriers want that kind of support structure for not only themselves, but also for their carrier to make sure she's supported through this. It's something that is there. It's needed.
That's so good to hear. And I just love what you did with Embra Health and where it's going. And may this be the new normal, the new model for every agency to have something. And may other companies come to you to get like how you did this. What's the formula? How are you doing this? Like, thank you, Dr. Sadaf,
Of
for
course.
all of that work and for joining us today and sharing it.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it always, but I love when who I'm talking to is someone who is deeply connected to this world. I think you being an attended parent, having your experience, you see this in a different light, right? There's an appreciation. And I hope you had a wonderful experience. And I hope that what you're doing with this podcast is only helping others have an even better one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That wraps us up for today. Thanks for tuning in. You can check out more of these and similar stories on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok at mothersinarms.pod. If you take a few seconds, please, to like and rate the episode on whatever platform you're listening. Thank you. It goes a long way to getting the word out on this little podcast. At Pretty Easy Podcasts and at Dante Pascuso Gracias, may the blessings stay with you. Until next time.